Some of you might have seen, what is it called, USA Today. And we have it here, I'm trying to get the date here, December 2nd, 1991. Cover story, it's titled, Dealing with the Discords of Diversity. And another one here called Producing a Paler Shade of Skin Color. And we got a picture here of Michael Jackson. Jackson, his hit song rejects color labels. That's interesting. A song is going to reject color labels. That's another thing I think we make a mistake of. We think we can just sing our troubles away, right? Sing a good song and the labels disappear. And it starts out, who's black, who's white, who's right? Increasingly high-profile African-American filmmakers, a Supreme Court nominee, even a mega-famous singer are engaging in public emotional examinations of black identity in the 90s. Is that right? Are these people really engaging in public emotional examination of black identity? And he jumps over and says, quotes Michael, I'm not going to spend my life being a color. Ignorant. Very ignorant. As an emerging black middle class slips into the mainstream, it faces questions about the duty to stay black. I mean, black is something you just take on and take off. Is that what we have here? You know, uplift poor blacks and promote black culture. Is that what is going on in the black middle class? The black middle class now is deciding whether it will stay black. You mean it has a choice of being other than black? And is it now questioning whether it will continue to uplift poor blacks and promote black culture? These concerns are reflected in the work and action of black filmmakers, writers, artists, and others. Who's blacker? Clarence Thomas, a Thurgood Marshall. Spike Lee, a port activist, Amiri Baraka. They've all been cross-examined in the media in racial terms. Whose media? New York Times, November 30th, 1991. In a 90s quest for black identity, intense doubts and disagreement. Lena Williams of the New York Times. I hope one day, Simitab, and maybe you're doing this already, can perhaps call together these black journalists and so forth and educate them a bit as well. So we get here, the ever-changing black experience in America is being assessed with a new intensity. Skin color, how you talk, more specifically, what you say, how you live your life, are examples of the tests being used to determine what it means to be black in the 1990s. Not since the tumultuous 1960s has there been such an intense focus on blackness. And it jumps over to, talks about books and news articles. The topic range from what's black, who's black, what's not, to black like who. Films like School Days, Living Large, Strictly Business have used satire to explore racial conflict and contradiction among blacks. And they quote a psychologist from DePaul University, aside from skin color, there's something to being ethnically black in terms of outlook on life, values, and beliefs. It goes on to say, some blacks say that black Americans cannot afford to waste time on such issues when so many blacks face a multitude of problems like drug abuse, unemployment, prejudice, and the disproportion of blacks among crime victims. And it's an amazing statement here. We would argue that to a great good extent, a lot of the issues just mentioned flow from the attempt to separate us from our identity, and in many instances reflect issues around people who are trying to escape their identity. We get quotations from various experts here, including Mr. Julius Lester, a professor of Judaic studies, speaking of identity here, at the University of Massachusetts, says that being black has evolved into a form of social fascism in the past 2 decades, especially on campus. So whites have stopped being fascist and stopped ruling. So the issue now is not white fascism or white racism, but black fascism. A related article, of course, that came out again on December 2nd, 1991, Black-White Marriages Rise, but Social Acceptance Lags. Then on the same page, Two Who Lost Their Way in Urban Wilds, a culture of violence takes a deadly toll in East New York, talking about the young man that was killed in the school over there. Then we came right back around here on November 25th, gold earrings, this is the New York Times again, gold earrings and protection. More girls take road to violence. And now they're talking about young ladies who seem to be engaged more and more in violence in order to buy gold earrings and other things. And looking at our own papers here, you saw 2 pieces perhaps this weekend in the City Sun, Clinton Cox, Am I Black Enough for You? Of course, in the Cox Manor writes a very pertinent and very learned piece here. And another in the New York Amsterdam News, Two Kinds of Blackness by Manning Marable. Cox, I think, makes some very pertinent statements here, as well as Marable, of course. It seems, according to the article, he again is referring to the New York Times pieces, that black people are no longer sure who's black. I had failed somehow to notice this phenomenon among my acquaintances. And he makes some other statements here then about the fact that, I don't know how the discussion is going to turn out, especially if it's carried on mainly in the white media. But then the majority population in this country always has tried to define who was and who wasn't black. And I think this is part of the key to these articles, that we have to keep in mind that the white population and the white man has always sought to define race and to define identity, and to define it in terms that would maintain his own superiority in the world, and define racial identity and put people in racial categories in ways to maintain his own status in the world or to advance his own interest. So you can begin to get some idea that this spate of articles must imply on some level that whites need to readjust racial identity and racial definition. And we must ask the question, why? To what end are they seeking to readjust this identity?